Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for giving us your time. Honoured to have such wonderful guests come and join us to talk about such an interesting topic, one that I'm very passionate about. And for those that spoke to me yesterday, you'll probably know that. I think all of you were exactly the same. So I really hope that everyone that's listening, and there's also a recording that will be sent of this out to people who aren't able to join live, and the team will write up a blog on the sort of best takeouts as well for people to use. So hopefully, no matter which one of those you decide to use, you get some really good and helpful information from the people in the room, some of the best operators in the country. So I'm gonna just start. And actually, I think I asked you all for bios. I was going to introduce you, but I think it's much more interesting for you to do it yourself rather than me introducing you and just listening to my voice. So I'm going to start at the top left. Kevin, do you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and why in particular you're passionate about this topic?
Yeah, sure. My name's Kevin Charity, CEO of a group called the Coaching Inn Group. We operate 18 small coaching inns, all averaging about 30 bedrooms in sort of market towns on a nationwide basis. I've been in the industry for 35 years, give away the age a little bit, but just still so passionate about the industry as I was when I first started. And I think the reason is that what is clear, you can carve out a career in this industry without having to be academic, without having to have a long educational piece going up to that. And so therefore the opportunities are big. And that's why I love this industry, and that's why I'm passionate. I'm very passionate about people.
Thank you, Kevin. Excellent. Dale, do you want to go next? You look like you're in a gorgeous dark room there. You're in your restaurant.
Yeah, at work at the moment. Restaurant Andrew Fairley. We're a gastronomic restaurant up in Scotland. Beautiful restaurant in the heart of Gleneagles Hotel. We run as an independent business within the hotel. I must be a similar vintage to you, Kevin, because I'm about 35 years too in the industry, and all in fine dining restaurants. As a business, we committed really from the outset. We just had our 20th birthday last month, 25th of May. We celebrated our 20th anniversary. And from the outset, we wanted to make a restaurant that was a fantastic dining experience with great food, but also a great place to work. And we've been committed to that really ever since. Still trying to improve, still trying to make ourselves a better employer. But we do sort of hit a fairly high benchmark in terms of the standards we achieve, and continue to try and do that for our team too. We've been 2 Michelin stars for 15, 16 years. Had a good run at Restaurant of the Year for Scotland, both AA and Good Food Guide. And just this year, we were voted as one of the best employers in the caterer. So I think that's we're still trying to improve, but we're doing okay just now.
And Dale, James Hicken told me a fantastic fact about you and your head chef Stephen yesterday, that both of you have been with the business for 20 years since it opened, which is phenomenal, right? You very rarely hear that. So talking about staff retention, you're doing okay there with chefs.
Yeah, a good marriage. We're doing better than most marriages, I think. But yeah, and that's we're not unusual. The two of us, we met working with Andrew Fairley in Glasgow, and we both came to set up the restaurant. But our staff retention, our sous chefs, 10 years with us. My restaurant managers, 8 years. Head waiters, 9 years. So there's a lot of long-term commitment to the business. That does make some things very easy because you're working with people who you've got a real connection with, a strong and long-served connection. And I think that makes it very easy for anybody joining the business that they're coming into something that is incredibly solid. But we attract people too for excellence, for professional excellence, and continue to try to improve on that.
Excellent. I'm going to come back to you on that magic dust, which keeps people there for so long, because those numbers are pretty unusual in hospitality, aren't they? So I'll come back to that once everyone's done their intros, if you don't mind, Dale. Tom, do you want to go next and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello. I'm Tom Ross. I'm the Group Operations Director at the Pig Hotels. I've been with them since 2013, but grew up in the industry. So my parents had hotels and restaurants. So my earliest memories are sitting on the pass eating a croissant or stealing some cooking chocolate from the larder or something like that. I've been very lucky to have worked for a number of businesses that have always been very people focused. I've never been in the large corporate sector. I first worked for Robin Hudson, who owns the Pig Hotels, 22 years ago, and I've worked for him 2 times since. He keeps selling businesses, that's the problem, and I have to go and work somewhere else. But equally, you know, people at the top of our business, the senior levels, many of us have worked for Robin for on and off for over 20 years. So again, I think like everyone said on this, I'm already, you know, this business is all about people. You know, there are amazing hotels, there are amazing spaces around the place, but until you get the right people within those businesses, then nothing happens at all. And so, you know, all of our focus has to be on our people, and you know, the mantra of people, product, and then profit is well spoken about. But within our business, there's a huge amount of focus on staff retention, on length of service, because that is really what ultimately underpins the whole brand. So yeah, it's something we spend a lot of time talking about.
Thank you, Tom. And I've heard a few people who've worked for Robin who describe him as an excellent leader. So that must filter down through the business. And an interesting man. I've never met him, but I've heard lots about him. So yeah, good stuff. And Jill, you've come back just at the perfect time. We lost you for a second there. Last but not least, wonderful Jill. Tell us, if, for people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'll take wonderful Jill and maybe just leave now, because that's
okay. Just go now. Oh, we're struggling.
Yeah, listen to everyone. It sounds like between us we've got about 150 years experience in the industry. So that takes us back to Victorian times. I hope we've moved on since then. I think as an industry we have. Unfortunately, I don't think our schools and careers teachers have moved on at the same time, and they're talking about the Baker Clause in the House of Lords at the moment, where it's going to be compulsory that everyone gets decent careers advice. And I am hoping against hope that that includes the hospitality industry, because seriously, it's still not covered properly, and basically it's still considered by many careers teachers as a second choice, which it really shouldn't be. We've all got some fantastic examples of amazing jobs and careers. So yeah, about me, I'm prone to get on a soapbox and bang on a bit, so I just thought I'd demonstrate that from the get-go. And you know, I run HIT training with the UK's largest and favourite hospitality apprenticeship training provider. And on a normal year, we'd have somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 people go through our hospitality apprenticeship programs, and we're running at about 4,500 at the moment. So our numbers are significantly depleted because people clearly weren't recruiting last year. But we're seeing an awful lot of interest now, and it is a great way to encourage people into your business.
Excellent. And we're going to come back to that as well, Jill, because we talked about this in detail yesterday, and it's fascinating, some of the options that are available. And just to touch on what you said at the beginning, the schools and careers advice, that's something that I can personally relate to massively. I remember first starting as a KP in hospitality maybe 20 years ago, whatever it was. And I loved the industry, but did not at all think this is an industry that I want to be a manager in, where I want to stay. It just, even within it, wasn't promoted as somewhere that was an exciting place to stay and work. So 20 years later, I love the job I have now. It's been very exciting, but isn't that fascinating? And again, I spoke to a couple of you yesterday about this, that potentially, while now this is the most difficult time for recruitment in hospitality that we've ever possibly had, possibly could this new time encourage people to think differently and treat staff better than ever, which could be a shift in, long-term shift in how hospitality treats its people, retains its people, and then is seen as an employer. That would be an amazing benefit to come out of something like this. Jill, I might just quickly stay with you if you don't mind, because one of the things we talked about yesterday, which I think is fascinating, is the idea of what do people want to do for work, and what can hospitality offer that other industries can't offer, and what are the exciting things that we should be promoting as an industry, that we should be talking about more to attract the best people and to keep the best people.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think it's quite often, it's a regular occurrence when I sit down with the client and they have got extraordinary offers for their staff. the well-being piece, the staff development, the flexibility around jobs as well. You know, this industry lends itself really well to people who can only work evenings, or want to work across a season, or, you know, all of that sort of stuff. It's really, really, really flexible. And I think because all of the people who work in hospitality are so embedded in hospitality, we're used to all that. We don't see those things as benefits. That's kind of just what it is. And actually, we're not really very good at saying, I recently had a meeting. I'm for my sins, I'm also a chartered accountant, and I'm a member of the hospitality group at the Institute of Chartered Accountants. And went along to a meeting. I was talking to one of the FDs there, and he was saying that they'd put on this recruitment day at great expense and great effort, and they had a few hundred people who said they were interested, and only about a dozen turned up. And I said, would you mind sharing the advert with me? You'd be really interested to see it. And the advert, basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, said, long hours, terrible pay. I'm like,
No.
okay. So would you like one of your kids or your missus to go and apply for that job? How would you feel about someone in your family applying for that job? Well, I wouldn't want them to apply for it. It doesn't look like a very good job. I'm like, okay. So why do you think the rest of the world is any different? And actually, they're not a bad employer, and they do have really good staff development, and they are really flexible about their, you know, the working hours and all that good stuff that that, you know, all of that stuff that we take for granted. They do all of that. They do all of it, but they just don't tell anybody about it. It's not on their job advert. So I think there's an awful lot we can be doing, an awful lot, which is just really talking about what we're actually doing. But yeah, back to my original point, we do need a bit more help from careers teachers as well.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And Tom, interesting, linking to Jill was what was just talking about there. You've obviously a very challenging time. I think we talked about this yesterday. One of the major benefits that you find in your business is you're able to be nimble and react quite quickly versus some of the major, bigger organizations that would take a lot longer to do these things. Can you just talk us through a little bit about what that experience has been like for you, opening back up the hotels, recruiting and keeping the staff and keeping them all happy? Talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think we were just saying yesterday that as a business, we realized that we're in a very lucky position because we're big enough to have departmental seniority where we can take decisions. So, for instance, you know, when it was all going down, everything financial got handed to accounts. They had to come back with the report. Then you had HR. Then you had operations, and we were able to take decisions quite quickly. And I appreciate on either side of that, in a very, very small business, you don't have the firepower to be able to separate all of those distinctive areas. And in a larger business, you probably have to go through multiple layers of bureaucracy in order to get things to happen. So, you know, within the operation, when we were opening and closing, you know, we were on calls like this, but able to take very quick decisions about what we were doing with each individual staff member. And I recall vividly going through 800 lines of staff, line by line, to understand what their situation was, what their, you know, where they live, what their family situation was, all of these types of things before we made any decision. And I think, again, within a very, very large business, that's a difficult thing to do. Similarly, as we've come out now and found ourselves like everyone else, and I hate to use the word crisis because it sounds as though, you know, it's no end to it and so on, but we're able to sort of pick our way through it. And there are, you know, we all know there are a number of reasons around why this might be happening, but again, due to the size of the business, we're able to take some quite and the fact that we're privately owned, and we're able to take some quite punchy decisions quite quickly, and the idea being, let's make the decision first and then we can work out how we're going to pay for that decision a bit further down the line. So yeah, we've made some kind of big calls in the last few weeks.
And talk us through them and why. And just quickly before we do that, Tom, that's incredible that you did that line by line with 800 people. And what an amazing, and that's as it should be, right? If it's a huge decisions you're making with people's lives, but an amazing thing to do. I don't think I've heard of anyone else doing it at that level. So that's just an amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned Robin's name earlier, but that's driven by him, and that's, you know, when we talk about working in an industry and so on. You know, whether it's the hospitality industry or another industry, ultimately, quite often you're working for a person, and there are some amazing people within the hospitality industry. They're very, very dynamic. They're very entrepreneurial. They're very people focused.
Yeah.
And there were countless cases of people saying, right, everyone's being made redundant. And I would never criticize anyone, because we went through some very, very difficult decision making, and everyone has a very different background from which to make those decisions. But it was fascinating to kind of watch someone like Robin, who's right from the outset said, we're not making anyone redundant. This is it. And even further down the line, when we brought people back into the business and they didn't qualify for furlough, we still paid them. And it was that. And we're in a lucky position to be able to do that. I completely, you know, and if the last year and a half has taught me anything, it's certainly not to judge anyone else in the position they're in until you've walked in their shoes. So we are just lucky to be in that.
Yeah, but for sure, Tom, and you'd like to think that those decisions that you and the team made at the time will massively help now your recruitment effort right now and the retention of people right now. So, you know, that sort of attention to detail. Whereas, and again, I'm with you. You know, we can't judge the situations, but we all know, and we won't name names, but we all know of ones who just made mass redundancies without any phone calls, without any care for people. And you know, you would imagine they may be finding it difficult to get people back in the doors now when they need them, and trading is getting somewhere near back to normal.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that, you know, if you and that's part of the reason why there's this grinding to the halt of the employment system. You know, it's just ground to a halt because people have got rid of a load of people, and now everyone's recruiting at once. So, you know, there's loads of kind of ifs and whats and so on. So there's no kind of blame in any of it. But what we took a decision to do is to take some quite bold. So we hadn't given a pay rise last year. We recognise that as a business and as an industry, quite a large proportion of our team are at the lower end of the pay scale, and we wanted to kind of move that up. So we made 3 commitments: that no one would get paid under £10 an hour, and that includes a 17-year-old apprentice. So we've got now a 17-year-old apprentice on a 48-hour contract, only 25 grand plus tips. So these guys, so now people on a 48-hour contract within our business won't be earning less than 27, 28,000, whether they're 17, 21, 25 or 45. Everyone got a 5% pay rise or more, because some of them had, if you were on 891 beforehand, we moved up. And then finally, and I think the biggest thing we made was we committed to pay everyone for every hour worked. And to me, in our industry, that sounds really crazy, doesn't it? You know, like, we've all got to put in the hours, and we've all got to do this, and you know, you do your 90 hours, and then you'll kind of get it back the next week. And then we sat there and just said, how can we put ourselves forward as a business that says what we're really asking you to do is to do all this extra work, and we're not going to pay you for it? And there are a number of reasons for it. You might be striving for the Michelin star. You might be a very small business and you're just very loyal to that person next to you. There are loads of reasons for it, and we've all been in there and been in that position before, and we've all done it. We've all worked in it. We've all employed in it. But we felt, how could we consciously ask ourselves to do that? And in the age of sustainability, where last year we were talking about sustainability being plastic, now we're talking about, is the business sustainable? So if you are asking someone to work double the number of hours that they're contracted and paid for, and if I said to you, well, why don't you pay them? You said, well, we couldn't afford to do that. And I would say to you, well, then is the business sustainable? And the only other way you can do it is to put your prices up. So at some point, the pressure needs to go back onto the public, who now need to accept that there will be increases in prices around the place if we want to become a sustainable business. And so they're really hard decisions. It's a decision that we've taken. I can't say to anyone whether it's right or wrong, or whether it will work out right. You know, we've now got to make all the money again next year somehow to pay for it all. But I think, you know, we felt as a business that that's the stance we wanted to take. And interestingly, so 2 weeks ago, we've got a number of job adverts out. We were 8 hotels. We've got a lot of, we've scaled up the businesses, got new hotels opening. We had 85 job applications for the number of jobs we had out. We changed our job adverts in line with our pay changes, and we had 411 last week. So over a quadrupling of applications based on that. So pay
maybe
is
you can share your job advert with Jill, and she can share it with the FD.
Well, again, you know, Robin's a really big point on that. You know, like our adverts have got to look cool. They've got to talk about the great stuff. If it's just, you know, bartender required for bar, you know, there's a million adverts out there.
Yeah,
I
love all that. No. I love it, and we'll come back to the sustainability one as well, because that's a really interesting topic. But you're right, and it goes back to what Jill was saying before about excuse me. how attractive are we when we're saying, and actually, and I'd be fascinated to hear from yourself, Kevin, and yourself, Dale, about, and particularly with chefs, for example, where typically working 70-hour, 80-hour weeks with all weekends, no personal life, all of these things, just it's totally unsustainable. And it's been a topic around mental health and well-being, but just paying people for the hours they're doing, isn't that ridiculous that we're even talking about doing that? But excellent, Tom, thank you. Dale, do you want to maybe touch on the magic sauce that you think you have in Restaurant Andrew Fairlie that's over and above all those AA rosettes and Michelin stars that helps you keep all those people for so long?
I think it's an environment of excellence. I think as a diner, there would be no doubt that we achieve highly. And I think in my sector of hospitality, that is often the reverse. For anybody who achieves that highly, it's usually at the expense of their employees rather than because of them. And certainly in my early career, I worked in those environments, and it was, you need to do 100 hours, you need to be working breakfast, lunch and dinner, you need to be committed. And it was all on the back of your own input rather than a fair dynamic. And all we've tried to do here is make our approach to employment and our colleagues the same approach as to our guest experience. So and I think that it is awful to even have to point that out, because in any other industry that just would not be the case. Hospitality, we do kind of shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit, that everything is about guest experience and end result, and how you get there sometimes is anything's okay. We've consistently tried to ensure that our side of the deal is as fair as the guest side of it. Hugely open business. We make sure that everything is shared with our team. Key things for us is honesty, integrity, transparency. Our team aren't lying to the guest. If a guest says, what's it like to work here? I would be confident to say that any one of our staff would say, yeah, it's brilliant. Have a great time. It's a hugely satisfying environment. And I think that's all we can do is stick to our guns on that. Years ago, when we opened the restaurant, I sat in this space and we talked about the things we hated in our career, the things that had held us back in our careers. And that was front and back of house, the management team that put the team together. And we all had horror stories of horrific hours, horrific food. It's the luxury environment that we work in. But wearing a polyester shirt that would cut your neck off when you're serving people who are in bespoke tailoring and high fashion, serving the most amazing cuisine to your guests, but eating atrocious food. Yeah. And doing that on the back of an 18-hour shift. So we literally just went down those lists and tick off the things that we didn't want to perpetuate. And we are still trying to do that. Some of the things, I think our working week we still need to improve upon. Our chefs particularly. When I came in to prepare for this, there were two of the guys in the kitchen already, and we have they're not allowed to start before midday, and there's two of them in there already. What are you doing in? And I just wanted to get ahead of the game. That's the mentality that sometimes you're dealing with, and trying to bring those hours back is our challenge. But yeah, trying to be as professional as we can be back of house too. Consistency and continuity, I think, are two massive things for us. We don't move the goalposts when we get busy. We don't move the goalposts when we're trying to achieve more. A working week is a working week, and just because maybe we lift our expectation, it doesn't mean that that's on the back of our team. So, similar to Tom, we looked at our pay scales through lockdown. We've always tried to get ahead of the game. We've not kept up probably in the last 2 years, so we've addressed that again this year to make sure that nobody's on even approaching living wage, that all our team, even at entry level, is earning above living wage, and that does make a difference. And that is financially, when we sat and looked at the impact, what we need to do as a business to be able to pay that and keep on payroll. it's terrifying in some respects. And I would look at other businesses who maybe don't charge what we charge and don't have the luxury market that we do, and think, how do you commit to paying that sort of rate? Because, you know, as Tom said, you know, as a 21-year-old, you know, you're guaranteed to be earning £25,000 and upwards, plus then the additional things that we offer. And that's a big commitment from us, but we need to do it, you know, and I'm sure other people would look at that and say, well, we can't afford it. Well, just, you know, you have to make your business work, because we can't treat people that badly. We can't ask them to take the hit constantly. Otherwise, our industry reputation stays where it was. Jill mentioned, you know, we're sort of Victorian, and, you know, we do, you know, as an industry, sometimes we do approach it that way. It's like a workhouse. So, you know, we've tackled hours. Our business model is that we're dinner only, so it's one service a day, and that was a conscious decision to make sure that our day focused around one hit of excellence, but also that it meant that people aren't doing split shifts, they aren't doing an 18-hour day, that, you know, that they can come in, excel, go home, have a life, come back and do it again. And you know, we've taken away a lot of the negatives that are associated with this end of the sector. And you know, I think a fair pay is absolutely fundamental to that. The key things for us, you know, we would describe ourselves as a food business. You know, everything revolves around our food. It's the inspiration for everything else that we do. You know, the service is built on the back of the food that we serve. The wine list is to enhance the food that we serve, and the service culture is taking it the next step to make sure that our guests are well looked after. But on every level, it's about excellence, and that goes back to back of house as well, and to contracts and pay.
Amazing. And just talking to you is making me hungry, but also you can almost feel the atmosphere, and kind of it feels like, is it like a family unit, everyone together? I mean, you took the number of years that you talked about, 7 years and 20 years and 8 years and 9 years. I mean, these are long-standing relationships, aren't they? Working in such close conditions, doing something that we all love. You don't work in your restaurant if you don't love food, right? So what an incredible environment it must be to work in, but also to eat and drink in.
You know, we're not trying, you know, we aren't a massive business. You know, it's a very, very focused, quite a narrow band that we work within. You know, it's a very similar service every night. It's only going to attract a certain kind of person. You know, it's not a hugely varied, you know, we're not a multiple outlet operator where you can get lots of different types of experience by working with us. It's a gastronomic environment, and the service looks very similar. Most evenings we're serving around 50 people a night, 7 nights a week. But we're not doing events, we're not doing banqueting. It's quite a narrow channel that we swim in. So for some people that might be quite restrictive in terms of the opportunities. But for the right people, you know, it's a fantastic place to be. And, you know, we've always had an approach of recruit from the bottom, promote internally. So that, you know, hopefully whenever anybody leaves me, I'm only looking to recruit at the entry level, so that, you know, somebody can join us and have goals to reach and opportunities ahead of them. So, you know, we're recruiting at the moment. I've lost an assistant manager, but I'm recruiting a commis waiter, because the shuffle up has worked for us, and hopefully that when it works, you know, that's always going to be our approach, is to bring in entry-level colleagues to give them something to shoot at. And that generally does work for us.
Yeah. And it's something that good operators do really, really well. And as an industry, again, some people do very, very well, and some people do terribly. Kevin, I'm probably going to come on to you now. It's a perfect link into the conversation that we had yesterday. And I think something hospitality's been really bad at is throwing people in behind a bar, throwing people on the floor without any training, without any real support, and then wondering why they fail and run away. Learning, development, people training, these are all things that you've massively believed in your business for a very long time. Talk us through what you do there, and why you think it's important, and how it affects service and all these great things.
Yeah, I mean, the the industry for me is all about people, and we put our people first, even before the customer. I'll be honest, which is something we frown upon. But customer's the king. But ultimately, we have to satisfy our own people first. And in the past, 5 years ago, our staff turnover was quite high, and we went out for a complete change of mind of how we could reduce that and how we could just make benefits and training and just the whole package better. We started with simple things like asking Jill to help us with our apprenticeships. But in the end, we formed quite a comprehensive training program, which everybody goes through before they're even released on the floor. It's very, very intensive to get them through that. But more important than just the training, then, it's the actual overall development. So what we want to do is open a career path for everybody. And I do mean everybody, from a pot wash to a housekeeper to anybody who wants to inspire to develop, where they can see a clear path to develop. And we've got a very simple app we use called Inspire, which everybody absolutely loves because they can use it to create their own development at the speed they want to develop in 3 different learning ways as well. So not everybody learns the same. So it's see, hear, and do, and it's 3 different methods, and it's turned out to be absolutely brilliant for us. Our staff retention has gained massively. We very rarely lose people now. I mean, it was very clear when we reopened after lockdown. Most of all our senior people stayed. And it's because I think Dale mentioned a lot of them have been sort of homegrown. They've come through. We treat it very much like a family, but we've always believed we must have bench strength. We must have lots of people there who can move forward and develop. The people we did lose were very much the people who use our industry as a stepping stone, something to fulfill, their financial needs for a short time period. So we did have some recruitment, and actually throwing a lot of people quickly back on the floor, and to be honest, not completely going through all our training showed. You could see the difference. The finesse wasn't there. You could see almost on a daily basis. Found it really frustrating. And but 5 weeks in now since opening, and you could already see the end to that. We're starting to catch up again and getting there. But it was a strange period to do that. But training and development has been absolutely key for us, and using lots of partners to help us do that as well. Flow training, Jill at HIT training, etc. But also our own in-house program has been, absolutely essential, and we've got a result from it. We've got a workforce who are very, very happy. And the other thing was, as well as showing a career, that's what we want to do. It's got to be a career. It's not just that job you fall into. There is actually something very serious. To be honest, you could earn quite well. That's the other thing. But then it was about the treatment of our people and the benefits. And Tom mentioned about the hours, that long hours that people work. We rolled that out some time ago, and we have a very fast, punchy weekly review. The people section of that is the bit I get excited about, because we think big but act small. So we will go down to the finest person to look at if we think there's one issue, or we look at anybody who's left that week, why they've left, because there's something we could have done better, etc., etc. But the biggest, one of the biggest reports is our hourly people hours worked week. We don't want people working long hours. We absolutely, work against that and pay for every hour. That took some getting convincing, actually. People preferred a salary, but what we were trying to say is, if you're going to work some extra hours, you should totally get paid for it. But interestingly, our hours have dropped drastically for everybody. Everybody works absolutely sensible hours now. But our wage costs came down over a period of time. And I just think it's because we're working with better skilled people. And suddenly, you don't need 5 people to cover a 3-person shift, etc. These people prefer to work as a tight team that know what they're doing. It works extremely well. And there's some of the benefits we've brought on over the years. We wanted a full package. Not everything suits everybody, so we go from Bupa healthcare to wellbeing grants, where we pay for people's gym membership, even down to a happy nappy grant, where we pay for any parent who has a child as a birth, we pay for their nappies for the first 3 months. But actually, recently, we brought on a mental health we put most of our key people through mental health training, so they become first aiders qualified. So all our head chefs, all our GMs are now mental health first aiders. The thing we've just brought on is a financial well-being support. So many people don't know how to deal with their own finances, and usually when they're talking to us, because they need some support, maybe a company loan, it's often simply because they're not quite sure how to manage their own finances. So we now put someone there who can help them do that. So it goes on and on what we do, but the point is we it's people over process as far as we're concerned. So anything we can do to make our people happier and better then helps with, I mean, I'm sure Dale and Tom will agree, we sell experiences really. Our customers coming from the experience, whether it's a fabulous bed and overnight stay, or whether it's a absolute top end Michelin star food experience, but it's the experience. But our people deliver that experience fundamentally. Yes, the product's got to be spot on, and it wants to be, and all the added bonuses around that, and the products we choose and the design. It's our people that deliver it. And so if we get our right people, it comes together, all comes together. So sorry, I've completely lost the question.
Hours is so interesting. And Jill's just kindly reminded me that Coaching Inns recently were named one of the Sunday Times top 100 companies to work for. So all of that great stuff there that you're doing is obviously being recognised by the staff and by others as well. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
May I ask you a question? Do you put all of that on your recruitment ads? Because it sounds like Tom made some fairly chunky updates to what he was offering and made sure then he was advertising that better. Did you do the same? Is all of that kind of packaged in your recruitment messaging?
It is. I don't think we do it that well, I'll be honest. I don't think we've shouted hard enough about it. We entered last year for the first time, came 44th. This year we came 21st. Wow. So we're really proud of that. And it's a real pattern back, because the reason is it's not the public saying, it's our own people, and the feedback we get from that, and every single person in the company is given the opportunity to take that survey, and it's very cleverly done. So, it can't be mass repeated, and there's some real honesty in there. And of course, we pay for that feedback so we can actually see how we're performing ourselves. And, it's a judgment on us, really. Yeah. And so we're chuffed to bits to get into that list. And, and yes, it is part of our recruitment. We don't heavily rely on it, I'll be honest, and unfortunately, so this time round, I think the reputation goes a little bit forward as well, and we do get great people applying. We've gone for a particular market, which we like to think our Coaching Inns are in the premium market. We're certainly the most premium venue in every market town we work, and therefore, if we want to put a premium offer together, we need premium people. And we do naturally now start to attract those, and people who want want to work in our industry, want the passion, or have the passion. But yeah, getting that reward was fabulous. Yeah,
well done, wonderful. And we've talked quite a lot about some things that you've all done, wonderful things you've all done that potentially require quite a significant financial investment. Jill and I were talking yesterday, interestingly, about some of the support that's available and pulling in experts to give us good advice on different additional benefits we can provide to staff without spending fortunes. Jill, do you maybe want to just talk us through some of the leadership ones we talked about yesterday? I think, again, we think wildly underused most of our experience, and doesn't sound like it now, but certainly probably growing up in the industry, the bartender got promoted to be the bar supervisor without any real training. And then the supervisor maybe got thrown in to be GM because the GM left, and there was no real support or guidance around that. And then that's awesome in many ways because people are given great opportunities, but there's a gap in terms of training and potentially some skills in behind that too. So what are some of the things, Jill, that you guys do or that you help your customers with from a apprenticeship perspective for the leadership side?
Heavens, well, as you say, we have apprenticeships now from level 2. So we have a partnership with Arden University, who deliver degrees and master's degrees as apprenticeships, which was something that never used to exist back in the day. It's a really, really brilliant way of investing in your people. I mean, as the people who are on this call probably know already, you don't pay any national insurance for a learner on an apprenticeship who's under the age of 25. That makes a big bonuses available as well. So individual grants, depending on where you are in the country. Up in Yorkshire, parts of Yorkshire, you can get £7,000 for taking on an apprentice now. And as I say, that people tend to think of that whole apprenticeship piece as level 2 entry level jobs, but it goes all the way through the business. One of the chats, and I think all three of you guys actually have said, better skilled people mean better businesses. They mean more efficient businesses. They mean better customer service. I was talking to a client yesterday who has a relatively, it's not a huge venue actually, but has nearly 300 staff, because he kind of hasn't got his head around how to train everybody up so that he retains his people, so that they want to work for him, and that his customer service is great. So he's filling the venues, but his TripAdvisor reviews are appalling, because the customer service is poor, because he's got lots of well-meaning people who haven't had proper training and know what to do, and so that goes all the way through the business to managers. So I think there are so much advice available out there. Yeah, my top tip would be, go out, find a training organization who you really trust, who've got a good track record, have got a great reputation, and just give them a ring and have a chat with them about what's available to you, and talk about your problems. Don't go in there saying, I want 2 commis chefs and a senior production chef, and also I need somebody to do a master's degree. I think it's much better if you go by and his team. Here are the issues we're trying to resolve. Here are the problems we've got. Here's what's happening in this particular venue in terms of staff turnover. And then we can put together suites of support that will help to resolve some of that. But there are such a volume out there of support, and even for the smaller employers as well. I mean, people think about the apprenticeships and the apprenticeship levy, all of that. If you run out of levy, or if you're not an apprenticeship levy payer, you only pay 5% of the cost of training somebody up. So if we're going to go talk about that level 7 master's degree strategic leadership piece, you would end up paying £700. That would be your complete employer contribution to that whole program. Just think of the value that most businesses can get out. It would be phenomenal. Similarly, at the other end of the scale, a housekeeper who really knows their stuff, front of house, a barista who's absolutely top professional. You're talking about it costing you probably a few £100, significantly less than it would for the level 7. Literally a handful of pounds, not very much money at all, a month. It's very, very cheap thing to do. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. I think people think that some of this development is only for people just coming in, but actually it's a lifelong journey. Developing every day is a learning day. During the last year, a lot of my staff and many of our clients have put in first aid for mental health as a piece of development they're doing. It's something that we're all about, obviously, and I really recommend that we do that. I'm a qualified first aid for mental health individual now. I did my level 3, which was fantastic. It only takes 3 days to do the program, and the difference you can make to your business is phenomenal. So it's not just about the great big. Sometimes you need the short, sharp programs that are going to make a difference quickly. Other times you need something that's the big, long, detailed, project-led development piece. So there's a lot out there, Ellie. It's a matter of picking up the phone to your trusted provider.
And maybe you some links, Jill, to the ones that you've talked about, just so that people, if anyone wants to, they can have a login and they can look at the options available. And when we spoke about that yesterday, I think you're right. Lots of people's perception of it is a certain thing, and actually there's so much value that we could get out of it. And you talk about the value for business, and you're 100% right, but also the value for the individual. Imagine working in a business for 5 years and you leave with a master's. I mean, just wonderful.
It is, and I think it's one of the things. The degree apprenticeship piece is one of the things that finally getting through to careers teachers and to schools. They're starting to. Previously, if you weren't going to go into a university degree, there wasn't a huge amount of careers advice for many people, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
Of it. And there was very much the thought that if you're not going to go to university, then the alternatives are for the people who aren't bright enough to go to university. Well, this is an industry where we've got a job for everybody, and the cleverest people equally as the people who aren't academic. There's something for everyone. So I think with the degree apprenticeships coming in, we're finally starting to get a toe in the door. Careers teachers are saying this is a genuine opportunity for you to really progress in a career, but there's a long way to go on that. still.
Totally. Amazing. And we've all talked a lot today about mental health. And it was a big challenge for the industry before the pandemic. But obviously, even bigger challenge now. And I heard some really terrifying stories throughout lockdown. So incredible to hear that all of you are being super proactive in that space and teaching people. And could you? I think one of the things that maybe on a slightly different tint to it, happiness. What do you think are the components, the main components that you use? And Tom, I'm going to go to you first, if you don't mind. What are the main components that you use to ensure team happiness in the business? And how do you tackle challenges like mental health issues? And have you seen an increase in that type of thing since the pandemic?
On the mental health thing, I think this was kind of recognised pre-pandemic quite widely across our industry, and there's some sort of, there's some great providers out there. We did, again, like I think everyone on this call, we've done the mental health training for the senior teams, and actually it's gone further down than that, and that was prior to the lockdowns and so on. Have we seen more? I think it's maybe a different type. I think there's also just a general acceptance of a recognition that it's quite widespread within our industry. I think sorry, what was the first part of the question?
So components of happiness. What do you think it is that you do as a business to the main components of creating a happy team, Tom? What would you say they are in your business?
Well, it's first of all the way you treat your people, isn't it? I mean, that's got to be the way you treat your people and the culture that it's provided within. Again, we had I sort of lose track of time now, but it must have been about 2 years ago. We had a whole company-wide seminar. So we invited, 300 people to a building, and we talked about this kind of stuff. And one of the things we came out with was just be kind. And actually, there's a sort of hashtag now, isn't there, be kind? But we were talking about it before then. Yeah. And that's not often talked about in our industry. There is. It's a slight aside, actually, but I really sort of hooked into something that Dale said there about those guys that came in early to work. What we mustn't forget is our industry is a really exciting place to be in, and people want to come to work early. And don't tell me there aren't other industries where people get up and go into work early because they really enjoy it too. So they work long hours because they want to, because it's a really fun industry to be in, and that's why we're all in this industry. And so I think a happy environment is one where the culture is set and people are valued. People are learning the whole time. I mean, why are we all in this industry? Because we've all had moments within our career, or lots of moments, something really fun has happened. You work with great people. I worked with Hotel du Vin when it first opened. Every sommelier that won every championship came through Hotel du Vin. It was fun. You tried wine. You talked about wine the whole time. When I was at the French Laundry, you talked about food the whole time. The excellence of service. Everything was passionate. That's why you stayed, and that's why you stay in this industry. And so I think happiness is a blend of all of these things, and the problem is you need to be constantly on the front foot with it. If you let it slip at any time, then suddenly the person who was sort of having a good time and has now just sort of plateaued a bit and then had a rubbish week and someone wasn't nice to them, boom, they're gone. Thanks very much. Now you're looking for someone else. And so I think it's a sort of rigor of excellence. Every day you need to be making sure you're ticking those boxes of appreciating your people, making sure you're taking an interest in them, training them. And, it's really easy to sit here on these calls and say, these are the things we all need to do, like on a daily basis. It's absolutely fine that people miss some of those boxes all the time. But I think if you're striving for as much as you possibly can do in those, and it's got to come from the top, again, within our business, we're very, very lucky that all the people at the top have that mentality. And actually, I think if that ball is rolling enough, suddenly the people that aren't interested in behaving like that just get churned out. They get spat out the side. If you're not interested in behaving like that within our business, then you're gone. And it's not that we get rid of you, it's just you don't fit within our business and you don't really want to be there. So you tend to get rid of those people who are not as interested. But it's a constant battle, isn't it? The perfect manager is not born. We all have to work on our skills. We all have to work on making sure that it's an environment that people want to work on. And I think it's a collaborative effort then, isn't it? So it's about making sure that you're working with your managers to ensure that they are able to tick those boxes. Not only that they're ticking the boxes, but they're able to. You've given them the tools to be able to do that. And as your company grows, it becomes not harder and harder. The challenges are different because you need to make sure that you're now hitting 100 heads of department rather than 5. But yeah, I mean, happiness is a blend of things, isn't it? I mean, it's quite an existential question. What makes us happy?
Yes,
Life, let alone in the workplace. But I think we all try a bit. Yeah.
But I love, do you know what? Just a simple be kind thing is actually just so straightforward, but often overlooked. And also, I mean, again, back to my front of house days many moons ago, sometimes customers would not be that kind, right? And that was quite tricky because you were almost seen as a servant, you know. Less so now. How have you found that, Dale? And I'm sure that's not a theme that any of us would hopefully see often anymore. But how have you seen that, particularly since coming back from the pandemic? Are customers more interested and more supportive and give bigger tips, or has it changed at all? Is the kindness element from a customer perspective towards staff adapted?
I think when talking about happiness in the workplace, is the biggest thing for us, both pre and post lockdown. You know, our job satisfaction is the thing that I think makes it such an attractive place to be. You know, from my own perspective, you know, in previous jobs where you're dealing with disappointment, dealing with complaints, that's a huge negative for anybody. Excuse me. And here we've just tried to, you know, put everything into your work. You know, be as professional as you can be. Make sure that your product shines. I don't, in my working week, in my working month and working year, I don't deal with complaints because everybody's bought into making sure that the product is what we want it to be. And our guests then are able to, you know, have a brilliant time, you know, and you know, job satisfaction every night, hitting what you set out to achieve or above. You go home every night feeling like a king, and that's across the board in our team. And making sure that, you know, the guys who are back of house, great for me. Everybody tells me every night, "Oh, that was wonderful." Well, let's make sure that that filters through the entire business, because it's okay me hearing it. My colleagues front of house hear it. The guys in the kitchen who've worked incredibly hard to produce that maybe don't. So we make sure that that's shared, that feedback is shared, you know, whether it's written or otherwise. And then when you take out the negativity of the job, you know, then everybody gets up and wants to come to work because they want a little bit more of that. They want to be told they're brilliant again. They want to hear that feedback and that praise, and that becomes it's a drug, you know. And I honestly, I can't think of in the last, well, from returning, we've not dealt with any disappointment. And you know, that is self-fulfilling. So job satisfaction, number one, make sure that everybody hits that target, and then, you know, that makes everything else much easier to deliver because you're not fighting fires. How do we maintain that? It becomes really important. I don't want to disappoint anybody. I don't want to disappoint a diner who's here to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary. I only get one chance to do a 40th wedding anniversary, and you know, and share that amongst the team. Make sure that we're all of that same opinion, that, you know, these are life experiences that we're getting to be a part of. And if we get it right, you know, you're giving somebody a memory that they will take through the rest of their life. And, you know, that works for us too. You know, if we come to work and you get those, you know, those treats every day, why would you want to disappoint somebody? Why would you want to come in and not give your best and not give 100%? If the reward is giving somebody a life memory that you know, that nobody can take away from them.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So we've only got 5 minutes left. So I'm just going to ask all of you to finish, if you don't mind, by just, if you had one piece of advice to give people that are listening or that are going to watch this back or read the blog, one piece of advice about how to be the best employer, what would it be? And Kevin, I'm going to throw you right under a bus and start with you.
I think the lesson I learned the last 18 months was communication. So during the lockdown, we communicated endlessly to our people. So every week I emailed absolutely everybody in the group, but really encourage feedback, you know, to come back. And I used to get up to 150 responses, you know, and I'd still respond to those again. The point was keeping people informed, created that happiness, created that team ethic, created that family feel, you know, all those things, you know, and I think Tom used the word rigor. Having that rigor, having something that we constantly believe in and stick to and deliver, has helped us over the years without doubt. And I totally agree with both the guys that kindness is the key. We always say there's no better thing than receiving a gift other than giving a gift. When you give a gift, it has an even far better feeling than when you receive one. So communication and treating people completely fair with constant rigor, I would say. Sorry, long answer.
No,
Sorry.
wonderful answer. Thank you. Dale, do you want to go next?
Create the environment that you want to receive. Stick to your guns. Don't dilute it when you're under pressure. Make sure you surround yourself with people who can buy into your beliefs and your vision. We are lucky that I'm not looking for 150 people. I'm looking for, front of house. We're a team of 12. We just need the right one, and don't sell yourself short. If you don't feel the person's right at interview, don't resort to desperation. If they're not right at interview, they're not going to be right in service. We stick to our guns. We make sure we find the right people, and we get the benefit of that, in the long term. But have a belief in your product, have a belief in your ethos, and then make sure that that's easy for your prospective colleagues to buy into.
Thank you. Tom?
I reckon I've got about 30 seconds, haven't I? If that. So I'm going to say...
4 minutes, don't we? Carry on.
Yeah. Oh, that's a long 5 minutes. Long 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll still keep it short. I completely agree with Kevin in terms of, I agree with both guys actually, but communication for us was hugely, hugely important. People were really at sea over the last year and a half, and the communication was the strongest bit of feedback we got from the team, was how well informed we kept them all the way through. Robin did videos that we posted up on the company internet every week, and it was really, really important. And the other thing I'd say, that to show a real personal interest in each and every one of the team, know what makes them tick at home, know what's going on at home, know what makes them happy. There we go. Know what makes them happy. In answer to your earlier question, and then you'll soon find out when they're not happy. And it's about that balance, I think. So know every one of your team as well as you can.
Thank you. And we're going to finish with you, wonderful Jill.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you, wonderful Ellie. Yeah, I would say, one of the things that here, we've been going for 15 years now, and I've still 10% of our staff were joined us right at the very beginning when we were a little tiny organisation. So we must be doing something right. And I think what we do right is that we're really clear about what it is that we're about and what we care about. We're absolutely passionate about making sure that everybody gets the opportunity to be the best they can be within this industry. So as an individual, it doesn't matter to me whether you're a barista who wants to be the best you can be, and you that's your progression. You have no interest in taking your career further. That doesn't matter to me. Alternatively, you could be a guy who's joining in their first job and you want to be the managing director. That's also okay, but it's us helping those people to achieve their passions and to be the very best they can be. That's what drives us as an organization. And my guys all feel that way. They all feel passionate about that. And I suppose the other side of it, from an employer's perspective, as an employer, just do as you would be done by. I was brought up with that, so it was something that my parents would say. It's like, you treat people the way that you'd like to be treated yourself. So that's if the HR team are talking to me about an individual and they've got an issue or something, that's how I always twist it and say, okay, if it was me, how would I like to be treated in this situation? How would I like to be communicated with? All of that. We're also a Sunday Times Top 100 company to work for. And part of that, as Kevin mentioned, the feedback from that is absolutely extraordinary, invaluable. It goes all the way down to each manager who's got 5 reports or more. I've got about 550 staff in my company, has an individualized report. And it gives you something to build on. It gives you something to work with. But to be a great employer, be fair. One of the things that's come out in the last year, which I'm sure some of you will be very familiar with, is the Hoteliers Charter. It's a little bit sad because it's something that we should never have needed, but actually it's a 10-point charter that basically talks about all of the things that you would commit to do if you sign up for this charter as a hotelier. And it strikes me, I was talking to someone from a restaurant association recently, it strikes me that the breadth of the industry could do with this. It's definitely worth looking into if you've not seen it before. Sally Beck from the Royal Lancaster is leading on it. You know, she's got great provenance there. And one of the points within that is about supporting the ambition to end low pay, believing passionately in giving people opportunities to develop their careers, and giving access to financial and pension advice to all of your staff. That's just one of the things in there. There's so much, but fundamentally everything in it is about decency, about being decent. That whole do as you would be done by. Let's all sign up to being decent employers. The more people who sign up to that charter, or perhaps something that's broader for the entire industry, we're showing the outside world, people looking in, we're showing them that actually, you know, we're not doing this just to try and get you to come and join us and then we'll renege on our promises. This is something that we've signed up to. It's part of our belief system. So I think that's really interesting as well. There's been we've had a bit of navel gazing in the last year and a bit while we've been had a little bit of time on our hands, and I think a lot of good will come from that. So it's every cloud has got a silver lining, hasn't it?
Yeah, thank you, Jill. What a great way to end. And if you wouldn't mind copying that link to the Hoteliers Charter into the thread as well. And also Tom and Dale and Kevin, if you've got any resources that you think would be useful on this topic, again, please feel free. There'll be comments thread in the YouTube channel that you can post some stuff. The more we can share, the better. So yeah, thank you again for all your time. I look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully soon. And have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.